Thank you.
Thank you. So this is just a resumption of our interpellation. I think yesterday, Madam President, we were discussing the dimensions of the license plate of our motorcycles. At any rate, fixed na po yun, ano? Yung 235 mm and 135 mm metal plate.
Correct, Mr. President.
And we have been informed that this is of European, if not international or worldwide standard.
Complies with European standard, Mr. President.
So this is, our sponsor is showing us a new illustration, Madam President.
Mr. President,
What is that, Madam President?
I have this is an enlarged version. This is not the actual, I have the actual plates here.
Actual.
I have the iwan mo na yung easel board due to chamber demand. So, Mr. President, this is the actual plate. This is the actual plate, the real plate. And then what was referred to yesterday by the good minority leader is a temporary plate, this size, with the several alphanumeric numbers. It started 2017, so this is just a temporary. And then for aesthetics, Mr. President, this is the original plate used since the 80s. Yeah, so when we were still students, we saw a lot of this version. And then, Mr. President, in other regions, you have color coding. This is for Region 7, Mr. President, Cebu. And then this is supposed to be the Doble Plaka version. Ito po 'yon na hindi na tuloy, the old series for Region 1 which should have been produced during the pandemic days. So hindi na po ito natuloy, Mr. President. And then, Mr. President, I have here the plate before the Doble Plaka Law was enacted. Ito po yung nakita natin na magulo kahapon na lumabas sa tarpaulin na magkapatong kasi. Kaya naguluhan tayo, Mr. President. So, the NCR series for the National Capital Region is different. Ito lang po yun. The NCR series started in 2019. And you have the alternate, you have 3 letters as well as 3 numbers here. So this is for NCR, Mr. President. And the total backlog, again, to reiterate, would be 10,448,288 pieces, Mr. President, as we speak today.
Sige, basta, Mr. President, what is important is that there is going to be a system which has some logic in it and which will not leave us all in confusion, Mr. President. So may color coding na per region, but the NCR walang color code, and then special ang kanyang numbers, ang entries. Special po sa NCR.
It's the same, Mr. President. It's the same.
How come why not just color code NCR just like the rest of the regions, Mr. President?
I think it's the call of the LTO on why and how they would. Oh, the color I was told is that it should be white.
Okay.
So since the plate itself is white, there is no need to place additional white stickers, Mr. President.
So white on white, Mr.
Yes.
President. So that's a very brilliant idea, Mr. President.
Never came from me, Mr. President. Was not my idea. We have some. The visuals came from the Land Transportation Office, Mr.
Yes,
President.
yes. We appreciate the brilliance in the proposal, Mr. President. So yung doble plaka na sample po na binigay, never po natin nakita yan because the law was suspended. Tama po?
You're correct, Mr.
Okay,
President.
sige po. What would be the difference? Yung sa doble plaka, and then dito po sa plakang pinakita, which will be the result of this bill, Mr. President?
We will have just one plate at the rear, and then in front.
Talking about the plate, what would be the difference now?
It will be the same.
The same?
It will be the same.
Except that the color, I think the color in the doble plaka was in the upper portion, Mr. President.
It's
Yes, tama. Yung color, orange sa taas.
that was the old series. That was the old series, but the
That is the new.
Yes, this is the new
That is
one.
what the sponsor is showing us is the new.
Yes.
Is the planned.
Alphanumeric series color-coded. This is now for distribution, Mr. President, even before we attempted to amend the law. So, Mr. President, just for the record, the Cordillera will have pink color, Region 1 will have green, Region 2 red, Region 3 blue, 4A purple, 4B orange, 5 Region 5 gray, and then Region 6 purple, Region 7 orange. They ran out of colors. Apparently, Mr. President, Region 8 is green, Region 9 is red, Region 10 is gray, Region 11 is blue, Region 12 is brown. Region 12 is brown, and Caraga is pink, and NCR is white, Mr. President. Just for the record.
Okay po. So yung regional distinction would be independent of the plates. So parang stickers po ito. So meron na naman additional action. Hindi nila in-incorporate na lang sa mismong identifier, the
No.
license number. Hindi nila in-incorporate yung region doon. So
No, Mr. President, these are not stickers. Apparently, this is part of the plate itself. I've been trying to peel it off.
I think that is a second. There's an additional action needed, Mr. President. Can we confirm with the LTO? When they produce the plate, they need a second action to affix the sticker, Mr. President. It will be in a high-tech manner.
This will be part of the production chain. Once, for instance, Region 7, this is orange. Once it comes out of the plant, the machine, it will have the color of orange. So this is not peelable. You cannot. Kasama na po doon. Kasama na po.
Sige po. It's ink. It's ink. The supply needed for the color coding is ink, just as the ink is needed for the number.
Correct,
The
Mr.
alphanumeric,
President.
same.
Correct.
Okay,
And the sidings, Mr. President.
Yes.
The border lines, Mr. President.
So thank you, Mr. President. Okay, so
And there
yung-
is a QR code, Mr. President.
Saan?
There is a QR code.
Okay, what will the QR code reveal, Mr. President? Hindi naman pala. QR code na pala. Bakit kailangan pa RFID? Tapos RFID.
Mr. President, apparently the QR code is an indelible mark, perceptible just to the Land Transportation Office for purposes of identification and to determine whether this is a fake license plate or not. So this is not your QR code that can easily be opened. So it is just accessible to the Land Transportation Office for purposes of determining whether this is a valid plate or this is a fake plate, Mr. President.
Okay.
The records will show, Mr. President, I can show it to the good minority leader.
Senator Estrada, Mr. President wants
with
to
the
interject
indulgence
something.
of the minority leader.
Yes,
If I
Senator
may.
Estrada is recognized.
Mr. President, may I know the
Mr. President.
size of the plates if this bill will be enacted into law?
Mr. President, the size of the plate would be similar to the we have it here in millimeter. So
Don't you have the, ano?
ito. Para maliwanag, inches. So it is 5.31 inches by 9.25. Hindi po ito kasali. Tinatong lang yan. Ito. This is a sample.
Before the enactment of the Doble Plaka Law, Mr. President, the plate numbers of the motorcycles are much smaller than this existing plate numbers. Am I correct, Mr. President?
Correct, Mr. President. As I have shown before, this is the real,
Yes. Original.
circa 1980s, and then prior to the adoption of the Doble Plaka Law, this was the expanded version introduced by the Land Transportation Office early 20s, Mr. President. So malaki ng konti.
Okay, don't you think that these much bigger plate numbers will pose a danger to those riding motorcycles, Mr. President?
Mr. President, your brother, the acting presiding officer, explained this yesterday, that the danger would be posed if the plate itself would be installed in the front, in terms of aerodynamics and the possibility of the plate being disentangled from the bolt that might pose as a flying object and can cause harm to a passerby or even the driver itself. But if it is installed at the back, and as this representation explained yesterday, I don't think it will pose any danger. And there are jurisdictions, even in Europe, wherein even four-wheeled vehicles, they have only one plate number at the back, and even in several states in the United States.
Yes,
Mr. President.
I agree with you, because I am also against the previous law that was passed by Congress, itong Doble Plaka Law. But I was not yet here in the Senate when that law was passed. May I know, Mr. President, are these plate numbers sufficient enough, o meron ba kayong mga backlog sa mga motorcycles? Do you have any backlog?
Meron po, Mr. President, as explained yesterday, the backlog now is, if I can have the other slide, the big slide here.
Just for the record, Mr. President.
Mr. President, the actual backlog here now, including four-wheel vehicles, we're changing this now. The actual backlog, Mr. President, is 12,548,909 pieces. And for motorcycles, it would be 448,288 pieces, Mr. President. So, but as of February 15, we have a March data. This is bigger now. This is now, it has ballooned to, as of March 7, 2024, I'm sorry, it has been reduced by several pieces. It is now 9,060,000 pieces, yes. Ang kulang po, ang kulang. Ang backlog, as of March 7, 2024.
Is my understanding correct, Mr. President, if there is a backlog of 3 million pieces, ibig sabihin 9 million motorcycles ang walang plaka? Am I correct?
Can you repeat that, Your Honor? If there is a backlog of...
If there is a backlog of 9 million
Yes.
pieces, tama ba?
for motorcycles.
Yes.
We're referring to motorcycles. So, Motorcycles po, 9 million motorcycles po yun.
Ang walang plaka.
Opo.
That's a huge number, Mr. President. That is prone to...
Actually, yesterday we divided it by 2. So ano po ba talaga?
I'm now
Is it
being corrected,
yes.
as I was corrected by the LTO. It represents the actual count
Actual.
of vehicles because sa harap, ang nakalagay lang po ay decal. Opo.
Tama. Naintindihan niyo?
So, siguro naman yung decal, wala namang backlog yun. Madali naman yun, parang sticker lang yun.
The decal would be a mirror image of the actual plate. So kung wala yung actual plate, wala yung decal kasi ang production po
Okay.
noon one is
So wala pa
one
kayo
is to
sample
one.
ng decal dyan? You don't have any sample?
Wala. They forgot to, I'm sorry Mr. President, walang sample ng decal, but the decal would also show the actual number of the plate supposed to be installed at the back. So if you don't have the rear plate, most probably they don't have the decal, which is just a duplicate number of the rear plate.
So for the record, Mr. President, 9 million pieces yung backlog, 9 million motorcycles ang walang plate number.
9 million,
Just round it off, Mr.
to be
President.
exact, 9,060,391 as of March 7, 2024, Mr. President.
The motor vehicles, Mr. President?
For motor vehicles, as of August 31, 3,598,066 pieces. 3
So,
million.
3,500,000
3,598,066
pieces.
pieces.
Dalawa yun, plate number ng kotse.
Dalawa po. So ngayon, as of February 15, ano na lang po siya? 3 million, as of March 7, 3,393,542.
Pieces.
Divided by 2.
So divide by 2, approximately 1.8 million.
Yes, ito po yung mga kotse, ito po yung mga vans, ito po yung mga
Yeah,
AUV, ito rin
so
yung mga truck.
kotse, yeah, meaning yung mga motor vehicles, yung mga trucks, yung mga kotse, ordinary kotse. 1.8 million ang walang plaka.
Correct, Mr. We rounded it off. You rounded it off.
Mr. President, itong mga backlog ng mga plate number, this has been a problem since during the time of the late President Aquino. How come this hasn't been resolved by the Land Transportation Authority? Lumagpas na yung panahon ni President Duterte, na kay President Marcos na tayo. Hanggang ngayon, hindi pa na-resolve itong mga backlog ng mga plate numbers, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
And this is a matter of concern,
yes.
Mr. President.
Mr. President, just like the good gentleman from San Juan, I am also confused and I am also bewildered by this apparent non-production of plates. And Mr. President, my notes here would show that the Land Transportation Office, they have been trying to increase their plant capacity to produce 28,000 plates a day. And they will try to have a robot machine, 2 robot machines, 2 weeks from now. I don't know what the robot machine would mean, Mr. President. Perhaps it's an automated machine without human intervention, and they would want to build up plant capacity. These are aspirational, Mr. President. So they want to increase their production from 28,000 to 38,000 plates per day, and they want to finish the backlog. The backlog will be finished by the third quarter of 2025. Kung wala na pong bibili ng bagong kotse.
Imposible mo lang
Kung
bibili
wala
ng
nang
bagong
bibili ng
kotse.
bagong kotse. Ngayon kung may mga bagong kotseng na-produce, madadagdagan uli yun. So it is a moving target, Mr. President. We cannot
So, Mr. President, their timetable, the LTO's timetable, with regard to the backlog cases, will be on third quarter of 2025, next year. Correct?
yes, Mr. President. The timetable, how do you explain this? I'm not supposed to be the spokesman of LTO. I'm really against inefficiency here, Mr. President. So what the LTO is saying is that they will be able to address the backlog if we stop buying cars or motorcycles and stop producing cars and motorcycles.
That is impossible, Mr. President.
Ganun ba? So, Mr. President, alam nyo, sinasabi ng LTO, the backlog started when a temporary restraining order was issued against the former supplier of the LTO around 2016. Yun daw ang historical...
No, but Mr. President, we experienced this problem, itong mga backlog ng mga plate numbers, during the time of President Aquino.
Yes. Yes,
If
I agree,
remember vividly, Mr. President.
I agree, Mr. President. But the LTO is now claiming that it does not have a problem with the materials now. The problem now is the plant capacity. The plant is already on 3 ships. 3 ships. Pero, Mr. President, if I may hasten to add, alam niyo po, Mr. President, pag pumunta kayo ng mga malls, doon sa gitna ng mga malls, may mga nag-o-offer gumawa ng plaka. Plastic. Gagawin yung plaka. May mga plastic sa inversion. Gusto ko rin tanongin ng LTO rito, pero ako yung sponsor dito. Pumunta kayo sa LTO. Pag nasira yung plaka, gagawa sila ng plaka ng plastic.
Improvise? Is that improvised?
Improvise. Same number. Kopyahin nila. I don't know if this is allowed, pero...
Is that sanctioned by the LTO? I do not think so, Mr. President.
Kahit tumakbo kayo sa kalye, minsan nakalagay doon sa plaka, lost plate. Tapos they replicate the exact number, gawa sa mall. Okay ba yun? Improvise, okay? Ha? By what authority? The LTO is saying now that improvised plates are allowed. So siguro so long as it...
Those mentioned by Mr. President.
Who will authorize? If with authority. So...
Is that authorized, Mr. President, the one you saw in the malls? Replicating plate numbers? Or improvising plate numbers?
That Mr. President, I think is not authorized. These are called vanity plates.
Mr.
Vanity
President.
plates are no longer allowed. Yung may mga convention of blah, 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 celebrating the 75th anniversary. So may mga vanity plates before.
Mr. President, if this...
Mr. President, can I have a minute suspension? Medyo
Session suspended.